Right now, you're wearing clothes, almost certainly. And if someone asked you why humans wear clothes, the answer seems obvious. To stay warm, to not freeze. Clothing is protection from the cold. Everybody knows that. Except that answer falls apart the moment you look at the actual timeline. Because here's a fact that sounds impossible. Humans lost their body hair around 1 million years ago. And then we spent something like 800,000 years completely naked. No fur, no clothes, nothing. Thriving, surviving, building tools, controlling fire, spreading across an entire continent, all while totally bare. If clothing were just about not freezing, we would have invented it almost immediately. We didn't. We waited for hundreds of thousands of years. And when we finally did start covering up, the reason was stranger and far more interesting than just it got cold. And the way scientists figured out exactly when it happened, they used lice. Let's start with a fact that most people never stop to think about. You are a naked animal. Look at almost any other mammal. A wolf, a bear, a chimpanzee, a horse. They're covered in fur. It keeps them warm, protects their skin, shields them from the sun. Body hair is the standard mammalian equipment. And you've got a full head of hair, some patches here and there, and otherwise bare skin. Compared to virtually every other mammal on Earth, humans are shockingly, unusually naked. So the first question isn't why did we start wearing clothes? It's why did we lose our fur in the first place? The leading explanation goes back to when our ancestors became endurance hunters on the hot African savanna. Running down prey over long distances and brutal heat generates enormous body heat. Fur traps that heat. Bare skin, covered in millions of sweat glands, releases it. Losing our fur may have been what allowed us to become the sweatiest, most heat-tolerant endurance animals on the planet. Genetic research on human skin color helps pin down roughly when this happened. When we lost our fur, our exposed skin needed to darken to protect against the sun, and the genes for that darker skin trace back to around 1 million years ago. So picture that. 1 million years ago, our ancestors were already losing their body hair. But the evidence for clothing, that shows up hundreds of thousands of years later, which leaves an enormous, strange gap. A gap where humans were both hairless and clothless, naked, under the open sky, for a staggering length of time. And somehow, they were fine. So here's the obvious problem. How could anyone possibly know when humans started wearing clothes? Clothing in the ancient world was made of animal hide, furs, plant fibers, materials that rot. They don't survive hundreds of thousands of years. You can't dig up a pair of 200,000-year-old pants. The direct evidence is simply gone. For a long time, this seems like a question we could never answer. And then a scientist named David Reed had a genuinely brilliant idea. Study the lice. Stay with me because this is one of the most clever pieces of scientific detective work you'll ever hear. Humans are host to more than one kind of louse. There's head lice, which live in the hair on your scalp, and there's body lice, also called clothing lice, which are different. And here's the crucial part. Clothing lice don't actually live on your body. They live in your clothing. They're specifically adapted to cling to fabric, laying their eggs in the seams and folds of garments, only crawling onto the skin to feed, which means something remarkable. Clothing lice could not have existed before clothing existed. There was nowhere for them to live. They are a parasite that evolved specifically to inhabit a thing humans invented. So if you could figure out when clothing lice first split off from head lice and became their own separate creature, you'd know almost exactly when clothing first appeared, because that split couldn't happen until there were clothes for them to move into. Reed's team sequenced the DNA of both types of lice and measured how long ago they diverged. The answer? Around 170,000 years ago. That's when clothing lice branched off, which means that's when clothing, real, regularly worn clothing, first entered human life. They dated the invention of clothes by dating the bugs that live in them, and it worked. Now here's where the timeline gets really interesting. 170,000 years ago. Let that sit against everything we just said. We lost our fur around 1 million years ago. We didn't put on clothes until 170,000 years ago. That's a gap of over 800,000 years of naked, hairless humans doing just fine. So why then? Why, after all that time, did clothing finally appear? The clue is in what happened next. Not long after clothing shows up in the record, our species did something it had never done before. We left Africa. We began spreading across the entire planet, into Europe, into Asia, eventually into some of the coldest, harshest environments on Earth. And you cannot survive an Ice Age winter with bare skin. It's not possible. A naked human in Northern Europe in winter dies fast. So think about what clothing actually was. It wasn't just a response to being cold where we already live. In the warm African environment humans evolved in, you didn't strictly need it. Clothing was a portable technology, a way to carry a survivable microclimate with you, wrapped around your body no matter where you went. Fur locks an animal into the climate it evolved for. A polar bear can't move to the desert. A camel can't move to the Arctic. Their bodies are fixed. But clothing is fur you can take off, fur you can add to, fur you can adjust. It let a single species, us, walk out of the tropics and into the frozen north, carrying our own warmth with us. Clothing wasn't just cloth. It was the key that unlocked the entire planet. That's why it appears right before we conquered the world. It's what let us do it. But if clothing were only about temperature, it would have stayed simple, practical, a tool and nothing more. That's not what happened. Almost from the very beginning, clothing became something much more than protection. It became a message. Think about it. The moment you drape something over your body, you've created a canvas. And humans, being intensely social creatures, could not resist using it. Archaeologists find evidence of this everywhere. Ancient beads, shells pierced to be strung and worn, pigments used to color and decorate. Some of these ornaments date back even further than the clothing lice, suggesting the urge to adorn our bodies, to signal something through what we put on them, may be older than clothing itself. Because clothing does something no other tool does. It's the first thing another person sees about you before you say a single word. What you wear can announce your status. Are you important or ordinary? It can announce your group. Are you one of us or one of them? It can announce your role, your achievements, your readiness for battle, your availability for marriage. In a tribe, the person wearing the rare furs or the elaborate ornaments wasn't just warmer, they were saying something, and everyone understood it. And here's the flip side that reveals just how deep this goes. To be naked in a group where everyone else is clothed and adorned stopped meaning cold. It started meaning something socially far more powerful. You're an outsider. You don't belong. You have no status to display. Clothing became a language, a silent, visual language of identity and belonging that every human could read instantly, and we've been fluent in it ever since. Which brings us all the way back to you this morning. When you got dressed today, you probably told yourself it was about the practical stuff, staying warm, being comfortable, not being naked in public. But that's not really what you were doing, not entirely, because you had choices, and every choice you made was a signal, whether you meant it to be or not. The person who puts on a sharp suit is saying something. The person in worn jeans and a band t-shirt is saying something. The uniform, the wedding dress, the team jersey, the carefully chosen outfit for a first date, the deliberately casual clothes that took surprising effort to look that casual. All of it is communication. All of it is you telling the people around you who you are, what group you belong to, and how you want to be seen. You are doing exactly what that human wearing rare furs did 170,000 years ago. The specific clothes changed. The conversation didn't. And notice how strong the feelings still are. The anxiety of being underdressed. The confidence of an outfit that feels right. The deep discomfort of the classic nightmare where you show up somewhere with no clothes on. None of that is about temperature. It's about belonging and status and being seen. The exact ancient signals our ancestors first wove into the very first garments. Clothing was never just about keeping warm. From almost the very beginning, it was about answering the oldest social questions our species ever asked. Who are you? And are you one of us? So, why did humans start wearing clothes? Not simply because we were cold where we lived. We'd already survived, hairless and bare, for the better part of 1,000,000 years under the open sky. We started wearing clothes because clothing was a technology, one that let us carry our own warmth out of Africa and across a frozen planet we could never otherwise have reached. It unlocked the entire world. And then, almost instantly, it became something more. A second skin we could choose. A silent language of who we are and where we belong. A way of speaking to each other without a single word. So tomorrow morning, when you stand in front of your closet and feel that small, familiar pull, the quiet question of what to wear, remember what you're actually doing. You're not just getting dressed. You're continuing a conversation your species started 170,000 years ago. And every single day, without even noticing, you're still choosing exactly what you want to say.